From the heartland of America and coast to coast, this is EM Student with Professor Dan Scott.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to EM Student. Tonight, or well, I say this afternoon, we are doing a special combined episode of EM Student and EM Weekly, where I'm going to be joined by several individuals that we're going to talk about mentorship and the importance of mentoring others and seeking out mentors to establish yourself stronger in the profession or your learning and education. So let me first off, since we are going to be a joint episode, both myself and Todd DeVoe, let's welcome Todd DeVoe as we begin our episode on mentoring.
So, hey, everybody.
Todd,
woo! Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, ultimately, to do a show together, but based on a belief that we both share with what we're doing in our podcast with investing in others and building on others and building on the profession of emergency management.
Absolutely. And that's very important, especially, we're transitioning, all the time, right? And we're having a new generation of emergency managers come through. And realistically, this concept of just mentoring and really having the old guard, if you will, helping the new guard come in came from a post that I read or an article that I read in Emergency Management Magazine a while ago, which was basically stating that emergency management is losing its thought leaders to retirement. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And I said, no, if we're true thought leaders, we would be bringing the next generation up behind us. And that's what we have to do. And I think I think it's important. I think we have a couple of guests coming on today that are going to just show that as a positive.
We do. So I'd like to bring on first someone who has shown me that even with just a little bit of time in emergency management, you can do a whole lot when you set your mind to something, when you have ambition, when you aspire to be better than what you are, and when you aspire to bring others to be better than what they are. So I'd like to bring on Brandy Hunter, who is the creator of the Aspiring Emergency Managers Online. Welcome, Brandy.
Thank you. Brandy.
Hi, how are you?
Doing
so
good.
Brandy, so first off, let me just say thank you or congratulations on two things. One, you just obtained your associate's degree in emergency management, homeland security.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so congratulations, and you just obtained a employment working in the same field. So that's even better than that, an internship that turned into a full job. And that's what else can you can you ask for, right?
You can't.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So it very much is. And I look forward to the conversation we're going to have, but I'd like to invite our next guest who's been on. So Brandy's been on the show, EM Weekly. Carol has actually been on EM Student, and Carol is, she is the inspiration that brings you. I mean, with a law degree, a PhD, she teaches it. She practices what she invests in others. She's someone that I look up to. She's someone that I turn to for advice all the time. I sit on a committee with her. I've learned from her in the classroom. And so let's welcome Dr. Carol Swack, please.
Thank you.
Did I say your last name right? I messed it up, didn't I?
Swack, it's fine. As long as you don't say quack, we're good.
Yeah. It's funny. I've said it so many times, and I messed it up when I introduce you to a live audience. That's amazing.
You know why? Because Dan, you're starstruck when it comes to Carol. Because
yeah, I am. I really am. You have no idea. When I get to talk to Carol, and when I get to listen to her talk, you pay attention. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and bringing you and Brandy together to have this discussion on mentoring and establishing others. And as Todd pointed out, I said, the kind of the direction that we have those that are exiting the field or those that are coming up into emergency management. Well, we're here now. So we're the ones doing it now, and we want to invest in those that are going to be doing it next. But then we can't forget that we're the ones doing it now. So that brings us to the conversation of how do we continue to build onto the profession, investing in those who are due to desire to do that, as Brandy has done with her group on LinkedIn, which is grown so much, and it's just since June, correct, Brandy, that you've put this into the action since June. Over 1,000 members of this group of aspiring emergency managers online, and it brings those who are desiring to be an emergency manager, or those who are just entering the field, or those who have been in the field for a number of years who want to interact with one another and help build each other up, which I think is a great concept. And so, I mean, ultimately, I just appreciate what you've done with that, Brandy. But Carol, who has been doing this for years, and that's what she does in her current with working for North Dakota, in her degree programs, is she helps place people where they want to work to apply emergency management in the field that they want to work in. There's medical, there's city, there's local government, there's private organizations, and she equips those people to serve where they want to serve in a way that they can apply emergency management in doing so. So two people from those who are doing it actively, and one who's getting right at the bottom and working her way up and doing so very well, very quickly. Let's have that conversation on how do we better prepare not only the emergency managers that are here now, those two are going to be coming next.
So Carol, as
Yes,
a professor, and as a mentor yourself to others, how do we, as emergency managers, like Dan and I both teach, how do we take this next step and really develop well thinking and well thought of emergency managers?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. Let me see if I can deconstruct it a little bit. So, developing well thinking emergency managers, really, that's developing thinking students who are thinking, right? Students who understand the space we're working in, and students who understand the current state that we're in as far as emergency management and where we need to go, and are willing to engage in those dialogues, be change agents in the space. However, I think there's this notion that those students are going to, or there was a notion, let me put it that way, that students are going to just come right out of school and they're going to be bright and shiny and packaged up and off they go. Not everyone is a Brandy. So we're not going to all get that. But what we really hope happens is something you stated at the outset, that was stated at the outset. We really hope that there is a marriage between existing knowledge and our next generation change agents, and that they come together and they create this bridge. That is the solution for emergency management's future. I mean, that is the bottom line. There is no other way to be successful than to take the hard-fought knowledge that is out there in the field and bring it together with this next-gen emergency management student. And really, I mean, we can pour things into students, and those are important things. But at the end of the day, it's being fostered and mentored in the space that is emergency management, where it lives and breathes. That is most important. When I do internships for students, I say, who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? And then we start with that premise and then roll back the steps to get there. But in that space, part of what they have to determine is, who do you need to be talking to that's not me? You know, when you look at whoever the person is you admire, who is that? Can we connect you with that person or persons? And sometimes it's multiple people, right? Maybe it's a woman in emergency management who's been successful, right? Maybe it's somebody in the jurisdiction you want to be in who's been successful. Maybe it's somebody in the sector you want to work in. It could be many different people, but I think that is really probably the most important piece. And that's why we're here talking today, right? Because that connection piece has to happen. It's not just for the individuals. By the way, being a mentor is a beautiful thing as well, because you learn in the process.
Absolutely.
But for the students, and if we don't do that, emergency management can't really be successful.
So Brandy, you and I talked about, and this kind of goes on to what Carol was just saying, you and I talked about some of the frustrations that the students and people that were in your circle were saying about trying to get mentors or trying to break into the field. And that's why you started the Aspiring Emergency Managers organization. And so speaking to Carol's idea here of really bringing people together, how do you see that coming from on your end? What things do you think students have to do or new emergency managers have to do to reach out to a Carol or to a Dan or to myself?
You just have to put yourself out there. A lot of students and those who are transitioning out of other careers are always reluctant to step out and talk to other people who are already professionals or practitioners in the field because they are afraid of being judged by the questions that they have. So I found a lot of people who see me as also an aspiring emergency manager who started this group coming to me asking me questions. And so I ask them the same questions, like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to be at? And for me, fortunately, I built up a lot of these really great relationships with these professional emergency managers in these careers. So I can, I'm kind of like a conduit in the sense of where I could take those people and put them together with other people. So I'm giving them a push, like here is a person that I feel is going to be the best person for you as far as answering these questions. And these people come to me, the mentors or the professional emergency managers, they come to me and they already say, hey, Brandon, I'm looking for mentees. I'm wanting to mentor. So these people are already putting themselves out there, wanting to talk to other people. They already are open. They have really great interpersonal skills, and they're valuable. And so I tell those people who are looking for a mentor, who are these individuals? I give them a little bit of a background, so that way they have knowledge of who these people are, so they're not going in blind. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these aspiring emergency managers. They feel like they're going in blind, just talking to Carol. I don't know Carol, so I don't know how she's going to take me just popping up out of nowhere saying, hi, Carol, I'm interested in emergency management. And how do you open those conversations? So I try to open that conversation so that way they can just jump in there and start talking.
So a question that comes up is, and this is one of the things that we've talked about before in multiple conversations, is that to direct individuals to the right place to look for to look for the guidance, to look for the education, to look for those who can lead them in the right direction. So when we are looking at our students, or we're looking at those that we could potentially, that are working in the field that just need a little bit more guidance, where do we send them? So I'll open this up to the question to both, but Carol, I'd like for you to answer first. Where do we send them to get the guidance, to look for the where they are wanting that information, to look who to look to give them also the words that they need to ask for the help? Because a lot of it is, we bring it back to it's a personal responsibility. I have to put myself out there, and I need to be willing to humble myself enough to come up and see someone and say, I don't know everything. I would like for your help. Would you, so where do we send them to learn that and to look for those coaches?
Well, I'm glad you just made a statement that I think is really powerful. You don't know everything. No one knows everything. And I think that should be the premise from which we start, right? You're asking for very specific, when you're mentoring, seeking mentoring, you're asking for guidance in sometimes a very specific area. And it shouldn't be expected that you would know everything. I'm going to tell you the way I approach it. I don't know if it works for everyone. I like what Brandy has just mentioned about being a space for connection. And I think that is a safe place. And I think that's very valuable. But I will tell you that it is a rare occasion when an emergency manager, and I think this is true almost universally, says no to mentoring. It's the question that must be asked, though. So, and the framing of what you want. So what does that mean? It could mean, can we have a cup of coffee? Can you do a call? And just starting to ask the questions. You're not asking, can you take me under your wing for 20 years? It's not that type of conversation. And if you are coming to someone and you say to them, I see you've had great success in this area. I really admire the way you've carried yourself in the profession, the types of contributions you've made. I would love to be able to take an hour and, if that, and chat with you, buy you a cup of coffee, which we're not doing too much of right now, but whatever that space is, I would just love it if I could just ask you a few questions. Listen, confronted with a compliment like that, most people are like, yes, compliment me some more. You want to hear from me? This is great. Not spitting into the wind. Wonderful. So I think it is about being humble, but also noting, like, of course I don't know. And I so agree with Brandy's comments about people being afraid to be seen as not knowing enough or ignorant about something. We are all learning. I don't care how long you've been in emergency management, you're still learning. If you're not learning, you're not doing it right. We are all still learning. We are operating in a VUCA environment, and in this environment, you are never going to know everything. And so we're talking about mentoring with young professionals, aspiring emergency managers, but let me be clear. You should always be mentoring. I don't care where you're at in your career. Mentoring is something that helps you further develop as a professional forever. So even if you're 9,000 years old, like I am, since, we've already discussed this, but, there's still places for mentoring and growth. And I think the approach needs to be recognizing that you're growing, everyone else is growing. And when you ask someone for their help, they will genuinely want to help you in emergency management. So I'll throw that to Brandy because I know she's doing good work in this space.
Well, I want to say is that not every mentor is going to be a professional EM. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they might be your classmates. Mm-hmm. They might be your peers. And that's one thing we have to always acknowledge is that, like, when people come to me, I'm not a professional. I haven't been in emergency management for a very long time, but I do give out advice. So someone might see me as a mentor in that aspect. But then, as a mentor, you are supposed to be inspiring others. That is your job. To be a great leader, you have to learn how to breed other great leaders. But also being, like Carol said, being humble, just being like, I don't know the answer, but I can definitely find out for you, And then also, people who are looking for mentors, they have to know that you don't just have to have one mentor. You can have 10. I have 10 or plus, and some of them don't even know that they're my mentor. I just talk to them. But like, for one, I'm not going to say his name because you guys know who he is. But anyways, he's one of my mentors, and I can call him at any time, and just say, hey, I have a problem. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And he doesn't put me on a schedule like for 30 minutes. Sometimes he'll talk to me for 6 hours, and he has just talk straight for 6 hours. But then you have some people who you've only talked to like maybe once every 3 months. And it's not an ongoing thing. It's just here and there. They reach out to you, but they're always checking in on you. They want to make sure you're okay. But also, as a mentee, you need to be also reciprocating that. You need to check in on your mentor to see if they're okay. And establishing those relationships, and not just in here, just give me the information, but it's a working relationship that the mentor and the mentee have. And that's what's important. And that's the establishment that people need to understand. When you are a mentor and a mentee, you have to build a relationship. It's not just, asking questions. Like Carol said, ask them out for coffee. Be organic with it. Don't just be asking them questions because people don't want to be just drilled.
Right.
They don't.
There are different levels of mentors and those who are being mentored. And it's important, as I said, you got to put yourself out there, but also not to give up. I mean, you may ask somebody, for help or to meet, and they say no. It doesn't mean don't ask them again. Just like I've said before, you may apply to a program and you don't get in. Does that mean you stop applying? No, you keep applying. You keep going after them. Yeah, there's so many different levels. There are those mentors you're going to get with, and you're going to become very close friends, and you're going to have a very close, personal, intimate relationship that you guys can bounce off. It's more than just talking about work. And then there's those that are strictly professional, that you talk about work. But there's also this aspect, like you said, you don't just look for those that are just strictly in emergency management. I have mentors from business, from finance. I have leadership, spiritual. These are mentors you look to help you in different aspects of what you want to do. And when you narrow yourself is when that's you put limits on yourself by doing that. And it's to understand that you get out of it what you put into it. But as you said, Brandon, I think that's amazing. Is you need to be reaching out to them as well. You can't always expect that they're going to be looking after you. Look after them as well, and encourage that and build those relationships. And then next thing you know, you're doing it with someone else. You're mentoring someone else, and you're building them to be better as well. Todd, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No worries. I was gonna say, Eileen just said people need to realize that people are approachable and they may bark loud, but they don't bite. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'll tell you something. As somebody who has a few people who I meant as I'm a mentor for, or that are my mentees, I always love it when I get feedback from the other instructors or whatever, and they'll be like, "Hey, Daniel, for instance, hey, I'm gonna out her right now. Like, hey, Maria's in the class and she's doing a really good job." And like Maria would call me up and say, "Oh, I don't know if I'm doing well." I'm like, "Look at everything. Everybody's saying you're doing a good job. Sometimes just take a deep breath, relax. You're doing great." And sometimes just walking them through like those trying times to where they feel like they need a little bit of cheerleading, right? And then sometimes it's education, and sometimes it's just like you said, Carol, just like having a cup of coffee with them to see how things are going with them. But it's always developing them. And this is a mentor talking to. This is always developing them into somebody who's going to be. They're going to be their better themselves. They're going to be their better selves, and that's what my goal always is. Is the students I have, they when they graduate through the programs, they have the skills, the knowledge. They made it through the program, and a lot of it is just making sure that they continue that and be better selves. And that's like some of the conversations that Carol and I when we had at EMI. A lot of it was just like me trying to like probe how can I make myself better. And I think Carol, you did a great job helping me out, go through some of those questions that I had, and I think that type of stuff is important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I met Carol at EMI and through the executive academy, and I approached her, how, as far as like being a mentor. Can you help me through this stuff? Can you help me look at different programs I'm looking at? I had just started my PhD program when I met, and that's the first thing I asked her, can you help me? And she's like, well, we'll start working on, we'll co-write papers, and I just started, but she's already like, yeah, I'm going to get you, we're going to do this. So to have that much belief in somebody that you just knew enough to know he's ambitious enough to work with you, and she saw that, but it's also you got to have that belief, whether or not they say no or not, which with Brandy, I know in one of our conversations you had mentioned that there are certain places where you were noticing that people were asking for help, and they were asking and nobody was replying to them. And it also has to think about, where are we doing it? Are we doing it on Facebook? Are we doing it on LinkedIn? Are we doing it on a professional forum? Or are we in a conference forum, or do we have a professional? These are places where we need to look for the right answers in the right locations as well. One of the reasons why you started AEMO, Randy, was because of that very reason. And you saw a need, you saw a deficiency, and you filled it, and it continues to get filled. And one of the things, I follow Brandy, and I'm a member of the AEMO, but she's also posting jobs opportunities, and she's posting internship opportunities, and she's asking questions to probe, to get people to interact with her on LinkedIn. These are all things it's a responsibility of ourselves we got to ask the questions that we want answers to. We have to promote the field and the profession to those that we are saying we are representing. And
can I interject too, Daniel, real quick?
Please.
I think also, professional EMs also need to go and just take the step and reach out to, if they see an aspiring emergency manager, like, for instance, maybe you guys know John Howledge. He's in Washington State, and he coined the phrase aspiring emergency manager, as far as I know. And he was one of my first mentors when I got on LinkedIn, and he reached out to me. I was on there. I don't know what I was doing on LinkedIn. I was confused. And he said, and his first thing was like, that's not how you create content on LinkedIn. Don't do that. Ask these questions. And ever since then, he's actually the reason behind Aspiring Emergency Managers Online. And when I created AEMO, I actually reached out to him first before I even promoted it, and said, take a look at this and tell me what you think. And those type of people who reach out to you and say, hey, I noticed that you're doing good. I noticed that you're a student in emergency management. How is that going? Professional ENs, practitioners, they need to open those conversations too, to let these students know that they're out there and they're watching and that they care.
That's a great point.
That's a good point.
That's a great point.
Sarah,
Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's amazing. I think some students are fearful in that space, and I think that they look at some of these mentor folks as if they're iconic and then therefore not reachable. So Brandy's point, though, about others reaching out to students, I think you will. I don't know if it happens as much as we would like, but I do think it happens. I think that the real challenge, and I'm just going to speak in the space we're in now, this is the worst possible time for emergency management because emergency managers are tired. And it's been one of the most first of all, COVID's been a difficult event because of the uncertainty and the ongoing nature. And this is unlike anything we've dealt with. And then you just layer in every other thing that's going on, and an election and civil unrest. And we've just had a lot going on. So I don't know how that would play. I don't know if they'd be more likely to reach out and be helpful because it's hope. That's what you see if you're a seasoned practitioner. You see youthful students, you see young students, aspiring professionals, and that's hope. It's like I see the hope in those spaces, and so I can see where they might reach out to students. But here's what I would say. In better times, you might see it more or you might see it less. I'm not sure what the psychology is going to be in this space, but no matter what, I would encourage students to reach out. I would say that sometimes professionals might feel like it's oppressive. And I'm just going to put that out there. I don't think it's oppressive, but they might think, I don't want to reach into the students where they might like, who is this Yahoo reaching out to me? But I think it should go both ways. So I do agree with you, Brandy. And I think that from professionalization standpoint, which is my area that I work in, we absolutely need to be making those connections. You want to have all the security and the protection that a profession offers, and I mean an established profession that has monopoly, autonomy, and authority, that level of profession. You need to build these bridges. You need to have a system where you are mentoring, being mentored, where it's a constant give and take, where you're having flow happening so that we're continually growing and evolving. That must happen. So to Brandy's point, then I would encourage Brandy's suggestion that if you are a practitioner watching this, either currently or later, or anybody who might catch wind of this discussion, I dare you.
Yeah.
Reach out to some students. If you're not doing it, do it.
I try to answer all my LinkedIn messages that I get. And I get a bunch of them, and I would say 99% of them, sometimes they slip by me, but I try to answer them as much as I can and as fast as I can. And it was one Saturday morning just recently when I was sitting there and I got this message in, and I got on my computer and I was doing some other work, and I'm messaging the guy back and forth. He's like, wow, you're being super responsive. I'm like, well, you just caught me at the right time, right? I just happened to be, kind of just tooling around doing some stuff. So I was able to answer the questions. But just reaching out and asking the question a lot of times. Brandy, you and I connected on LinkedIn, and that's how we started our relationship. I think that's important to do that. And but again, back to all of us that are already in the profession, if somebody reaches out to you, be better and answer the question. And if you don't know, direct them to who that has the answer. And it takes a second or two to write a quick text back to say, hey, this is what I think, or whatever. And if you have a conversation with a person, that's even better. I mean, and I think it's our duty to the profession to mentor the next group coming up behind us. And that's just kind of my take on it. So, but Brandy, that being said, right. You know, how do you encourage your fellow students to reach out, just to do that cold call, email, text message to, you know, through LinkedIn? Because I think LinkedIn is a really great platform for this.
I just give them a name. I just throw a name at them and tell them to contact that person. I don't, you know, and to at first at least say, you know, Brandy recommended that I talk to you, you know, at least so that way that person knows that they're just not coming and, you know, out of nowhere just saying, hey, my name is so-and-so, which is fine, you know, but I'm not going to give them a connections name I know is not going to be responsive. I will never do that to them, to sit there and say, oh, go talk to so-and-so, knowing that person is probably going to ghost them. You know, I need to know that these people that they're going to reach out to are reliable. And if they can't answer it, I know those people will give them somebody else. Just like you said, Todd, they will know who else can answer those questions. Right. But I just encourage, like, you know, don't be afraid. You know, like, everybody on here is pretty good. Well, the ones I know on LinkedIn are pretty good at being responsive and answering questions. And even if they can't or they're busy, I've had EM say, hey, Brady, I'm busy. I've been in the middle of something. I've just been doing a whole lot of Zoom meetings and conference calls or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I move on. But that's the beauty of having a whole bunch of mentors and a bunch of people that you can connect with, is that you're not just singly looking for one person and that person is busy and they can't get to you. You're let down, but you have to have a backup plan to a backup plan. That's what my dad always tells me. Have a backup plan, and you need to have a whole bunch of mentors who are going to be backed up back there for you. Answer all your questions. But like going back to what you said, Todd, I tell them just to go out there, just give them a push. You know, here's that person. But it's really hard because at the end of the day, it's up to them. You know, I can only do so much.
Yeah. Hey, Carol, I got a question for you. And I think, and Dan, this kind of goes for you too, this question. So as a guy who's out there, put himself out there as a professor, and I always tell my students, and I really truly mean this, it's not a BS statement, that when I'm teaching a class, every class, I learn just as much from my students as I think they're getting from our conversations. And do you feel the same way, Carol and Dan?
I'll go first, Dan. Sorry, I just started talking just like I could. Sorry. Yes, I absolutely do feel that. And the way I teach in my classroom is basically telling the students, you're not, empty vessels that I'm going to pour myself into, my knowledge. This is a collective, and you're bringing who you are to the table. And this is EM in a nutshell, right? I mean, we come from all these different places and this collective knowledge. So yes, not only do you learn with each new group of students, because you get different dynamics, different combinations, and you learn about how they engage with the others, because we're always working with people and we're relationship centric. But you kind of also learn about where these backgrounds and their experiences deliver different thoughts. And for me, that's been incredibly helpful to understand what the potential is in next gen. Not everybody has had this opportunity for education, right? This didn't used to be a thing, the emergency management education. So kind of being in the space where we're really talking about, where we're at today, the places we would like to get to. I mean, don't even get me started on resilience and sustainability, because, you only have 1 week or 2 weeks, right? But I have years of material on that front. What should we be looking at? The places that they're at, they're able to have these really rich discussions. So yes, I learn all the time in these spaces. And I'm doing an IAM presentation on this, and I'll just tell you, because, it's fresh in my mind since I recorded it recently. If you should be learning every single day about something. And this, again, I mean, when I see some of the things that Brandy's posted in the jobs, and thank you for the jobs, I try and repost those for my students. So I do appreciate you cutting down this much of my work. You are helping me so much. But when I think about learning, we should always be learning. So Todd, I'm glad you brought that up. As an educator, I think a lot of people think, oh, you know everything. I just want to throw up when somebody thinks I know everything because I have a PhD in emergency management. That tells me you fundamentally do not understand what a PhD is, which is a narrowing of studies. And, so you start way out here in your degrees, right? And then you narrow and narrow, and you become so narrow. And then you get to the PhD. So when they say piled high and deep, that means something, because it really is piled high and deep as a PhD. So yes, but I do think you need to continue to learn in all spaces. And thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, Dan, to just jump all over that.
No, I prefer it. So when it comes to me, and when I'm teaching we're teaching a class, yeah, I absolutely learn from them, and I actually start the classes by saying just that. I'm not really here to just learn to teach you and to throw a bunch of information at you and death by PowerPoint. And no, I want the interaction, I want the discussion, I want to build upon. But it's not necessarily even just as me as an instructor; it's me as a student as well. It's not only learning from the person that's up in front of the class, but what everybody else has to say. When I'm sitting there as a student, I'm taking in and learning I mean, for most of those who are career students, really, they understand that you learn more from each other than you do from the person at the front of the room showing you a PowerPoint, because of the not only interaction that takes place while you're having that conversation, but the conversation that leaves the classroom and leads to other more in-depth conversations or lifelong friendships. Me and Todd, we happened to come across each other at a conference, and we kept in contact, but it wasn't until we were in class together that we became friends. And we became not only friends, but we started working together. We started talking together. We shared the same beliefs, and it grows that way. And I have lifelong friends now that I started meeting in classrooms that I still talk to on a regular basis, that I still text with, every other day, that I'm on the phone with, or you see our email. These are things that I share through the aspect of being a student, and I can apply that as being an instructor, as a professor. I sit there and I can apply those things, and I can encourage those things because I've already done it. So when it comes to the aspect of that, and that's the same way as with mentoring, it's easier to lead somebody somewhere if you've already been there, right? Or if at least you know the right direction. There's an aspect of engagement and follow through that needs to take place. Just to follow up on a comment that Brandy made was, I follow through with if I think somebody could benefit from somebody else. Hey, Carol, do you mind if I have Brandy contact you for this reason?
Yeah.
I've contacted Carol, Brandy. She's ready. She's waiting for your call. She's waiting for your email, your text. There's a certain amount of engagement and follow through that has to take place as a mentor and the one being mentored, a mentee, because that follow through to say, now I've given you the contact, you have to follow through and make sure that you make contact with them and learn from them and engage with them. It's the same way in the classroom as it outside the classroom. And it boils back down to what I opened it up with: personal responsibility. I have to take responsibility in my personal education. And by taking that responsibility, I then I reached out to Todd and said, hey, Todd, XYZ, this is what I need. Can you help me? No, Carol, hey, I'm looking around for somebody who can help me. Great. And I have multiple mentors, many that I've gathered over the last just 3 years. But ultimately it's that initial step to say, hey, what do you think about? Would you mind being that coach for me? And it's a little humbling and it's scary, because what if they say no? Well, hey, it's that's just aspect of life. It's not it's not all as much as you can just do on your phone anymore. You got to have some more of that face-to-face interaction, those conversations, even when they're not the ones you want to hear about.
Dan walks around with a basket and he puts people in the little basket. He gathers them.
I just collect people.
Like they're Pokemon cards.
I'm a network collector. I collect people, and I treat people the way that I want to be treated, and I match people up the way they need to be matched up. That's just the way I do things.
Can I jump in on that? Let me just say, I mean, I'm sure everyone has had an opportunity to read The Tipping Point by Gladwell, but what you're talking about, and which is true about emergency managers, is most of us are connectors. And so in the Gladwell typology, right? So this connector piece is critically important, and that is part of the mentor kind of initiative as well. Everybody who has had the opportunity to engage with others and work in a collaborative situation, they're in the spirit of service. We work under a moral purpose in emergency management. We have a spirit of service. They're already in the space that is going to be most amenable to mentoring. So I love this talking, this relating that we're doing in the space of recognizing that connectors, who are the people that are most likely to mentor and to be the best mentor, are who we innately are as emergency management professionals. So it should all come together perfectly.
Absolutely. Andrew makes a really good point down there. Networking communication is absolutely correct. And then Eileen says, PhD knows a lot that in a narrow area, and they can usually tell you a lot about papers they've written and the references, but they may not make the link to that someone else sees simply because of a difference of experience. And absolutely. And this is exciting stuff. We've been chit-chatting for a little bit longer than we really wanted to. And so I just want to go around the horn really quick. And Brandy, do you have anything? Because I think you're right. And I think Brandy is a really great example of somebody who is a connector. She's creating the aspiring emergency managers online, and putting people together. So Brandy, what's your I'm going to let you end up with this. And then I have one last thing to say, and then we'll just close out the day. So Brandy, tell me about your reason why you think that you're a connector, why you became a connector, I should say.
Because it just seemed like there was an issue with the connection when I started getting into emergency management. I didn't know where to go as an aspiring emergency manager myself. I remember when I was in my class, and my course ended, I reached out and I asked my professor, "Can you be my mentor?" And I was like, "Is that how you ask? Is this how you get a mentor?" I'm like, this is like the weirdest question. She was like, and then she said really politely, "You can always reach out to me whenever you have a question." I was like, "Oh, you're so lovely." And I want more people like that, But then I go on to Facebook and people are like piranhas over there. You ask a question and you're looking for a mentor and they attack you. And then, so I decided to create AEMO because I wanted a special place. I wanted a safe place for people to just come and find those connections. And if I have to be that connector, I'm more than willing. And that's just who I am. That's what I'm about. That's my lifelong goal, is to be a connector. So if anybody wants me to connect you with somebody, I'll connect you.
So one of my favorite questions I always love asking to my guests on the show, and I haven't done this in a while, I have to bring that segment back because people have asked about it, is what books or publications are you reading? And Carol and I had a long conversation regarding reading and books back at the Emmitsburg. And if you look behind me, I have a ton of books, and I have books in front of me all over the place online. I got the audio book, so I'm constantly reading. So I'm gonna ask that question. So Daniel, what books or publication are you? And I'll go around the horn. What books or publication are you reading right now?
Well, I got a whole library right here on my desk at work, and then I have my library at home. But the book I'm reading right now is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek.
Great book.
And I have this. I have it in hard copy and audio. And the thinking behind this is EM all the way. It's a long-term thinking. It's continual improvement, continual growth, and it's being able to apply it without limited thinking. And so I would say the Infinite Game is one of the ones that I'm continuing to read right now, as well as Seth Godin wrote a book called This is Marketing. And one of the things that I'm learning to apply to emergency management is marketing. We need to market ourselves better. We need to market the profession better. So I'm learning from those who have done it for years and years and who are the best in the field and just how to do that.
Brandy, what are you reading?
So I had to look it up because I'm like, I don't have my books in front of me like you guys do. So Emotional Intelligence for the Modern Leader by Christopher D. Connors. I wanted to learn about how can I become more, just a little bit more sound in my reaction as far as just personal and professional. And it's a really great book. I haven't gotten too far, but there are some short stories in there by the lady who created what are those pantyhose? She created pantyhose and or Spanx. She created Spanx, and then Tyler Perry. And so they just talk about where they began and the humble experience that they had to become leaders.
Carol, what are you reading?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I have like a freaking stack of books here because I'm a hoarder. I'm a book hoarder. But I'm going to show you what I actually have my class read, and I reread it every time they have to reread it. It's all in the positive psychology space. I strongly recommend it. The Happiness Equation. And the reason that I have them read it is primarily because the things we think are going to make us happy, I mean, based on psychology, do not make us happy. And I want them to recognize that the key thing that you need to hold on to is your ikigai. And that's a Japanese term for your purpose in life. And because emergency management has that moral purpose, and that is, you mean, you can talk to emergency managers, you're driven to be in emergency management. It's not just something, well, you know, that looks like a good career. What the hell? I'll just pick that. It's something that you're driven to do. And so this book does kind of set you into the space of your ikigai, and it gives you a sense of how that really fits into a balanced life. So I really recommend that book.
And I'm going to go ahead.
Will you tell us your book, Todd?
Yeah, well, I got two. So I'm rereading Anti-Fragile, and I'm doing that because I'm actually writing a long piece on how to apply the concepts of anti-fragility from Nicholas Taleb into emergency management, and how resiliency and being robust is what we really need to be thinking about. So that's more of a research type of thing I'm doing. And then I just got this book the other day. I just started, and it's Stories That Stick. And it's the idea of when we, as culture, as humans, we tell stories to each other. You used to go through the oral tradition of sitting around the campfire telling stories, and what stories that stick. And why does a story like Rick Scolari from 9/11, and how is that sticking, for survival type stuff? And how can we do these things to make stories that stick, to make emergency management more prevalent and preparedness in our society? And I want to end with this. So we do have a book giveaway coming up in this month, right? Just on Thanksgiving Day. And if you've gone onto the Facebook group and you have put your book in that you think should be on the emergency manager's bookshelf, and like I say, not just on their bookshelf, but have them, like, they should read it too, right? You can buy a book and put it on your bookshelf, doesn't mean, right? And Jeff donated his book. It's a hardcover book here, and it's signed, right? So it's a little special. It's not just a book that he's sending out. So he took the time. I don't know if you can see it or not with the glare. There it is. It's a signed book, and you guys will win this book. So go ahead and put your name in there for the win, right? And it'll be shipped out. And so we're going to do more of those, but I think it's important for everybody to be reading. I'm going to bring that question back, and I do appreciate it. So Carol and Brandy, Dan, obviously, I appreciate you all today. It was a really cool combined chat that we had, and yeah, I'm excited about it. Producer Brian, come back in here for a second. What book are you reading? I know what it is, but I'm asking.
I am actually reading Green Light by Matthew McConaughey. I needed a break from business, so taking a break.
It's his personal journey. It's an interesting book, and I'm going to be reading that one as well. All right, everybody. Well, I really appreciate everybody's time today, and everybody who joined us for this late evening for some places and for late afternoon for others. Thank you again for being here with us with EM Student and EM Weekly combined, webcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you both to Carol and Brandy for taking your time to join us, have this conversation. And I know the conversation will continue as we continue to build ourselves and others.
Thank you.
Thank you.